Today, I'm going to show you some common data binding mistakes in MVVM and XAML and show you how to fix it, but also some best practices too. So tune in. Hey everyone, I'm James, and today I'm back with a different style of video. This time it's actually viewer submitted code and problems. We're going to fix some problems here. Now I have tons of videos on MVVM 101 and XAML 101, so check those out first. If you're looking to get into MVVM and XAML, if you're doing Windows, WPF, UWP, .NET MAUI, Xamarin.Forms, Avalonia, Uno, any of the things, all the XAMLs, all the data binding, all the things, those videos will super help, but also you should probably watch them if you're interested in getting into the user interface with XAML and MVVM data binding stuff. Now, data binding enables us to kind of bind our controls to some code behind. So for example, you have a label that you want the text to update. You can bind it to a property that would then automatically update it. Same thing with an entry. You can type in a field and it would update your code behind, which is really cool. So it's linked together there. So this user submitted some, and viewer submitted some code snippets, and I tried to reconstruct their application the best that I could. And we're gonna see what's wrong and also how we can fix it and look at some best practices over here too. Now, before we get into the code, if you like this video so far, you think you're gonna like it even more, give it a thumbs up. If you like this channel at all, it really helps the YouTube algorithm of goodness. Like it earlier in the video, super good. So anytime during this video, give it a thumbs up if you like it. Super appreciate that. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. So let's check it out. Now, this application is relatively straightforward. We have some data entry. So here we have a first name, last name, mail, and password, and then a button that will add a person to a database maybe, or make a web request. Who knows? I didn't get all of that code, but this looks pretty good. I would say the first thing that I note is that I don't love that it's like first name lowercase in here. We can also see that there's it doesn't know about the data context yet. If we look at the code behind, there is a view model here. So maybe the first thing I would do inside of here is, this is a Xamarin.Forms and .NET MAUI thing, but you can do an X data type, and then you can do the person. You can do like a new XMLNS local here, and then I would do the MAUI app 23. And then I could do local, let's say person page view model, and then it would basically look for those properties, and it says, okay, those properties exist. So that's one thing that's good about it so far. Now, the binding here for a data entry is two-way, which means if I type in the entry, it's going to update the code behind. And also if I change it, it's also going to update it too. Now, if I did another label down here and I said label, and I said text equals binding first name, this is kind of one way, right? Which is like, I can't update a label from the UI, but I could update it from the code behind. So what we would expect here is if I'm typing into this thing, we would want this to sort of update too. So let's set that text color. We want the label to update in symmetry. So let's go ahead and look at the code behind in our person class. This looks good. We have a person, first name, last name, email, password. Now, it doesn't look like we're binding directly to a person. We're binding to a view model, which means that these properties must exist on the view model. So let's check that out. And sure enough, here's our view model, very minimal. This is what they sent me. So I have a post people, which is an I command. This looks perfect. Sometimes you might say post people command or something like that, totally up to you. This is a public I command with a getter. So that's really good. There's a getter on there, it's public. Only public properties can be seen visibly by the XAML. So you can't like have a private or internal property that you want to expose in your user interface. It has to be public. So this is looking really good. This calls a add person, which is a static void. I'm not sure why it's a static void. That might be an issue there too, because here I know that there was a few lines of code that they were running into that said, hey, this doesn't work. Like I'm adding and creating a new person. I'm trying to call the set property method, which does something maybe in their code. And this is giving me an error that I can't reference a non-static property. And that's correct. This doesn't need to be static because you're not calling it from anywhere. Static methods can only access static properties. So unless you made these static, which you wouldn't want to do, you would want to just make this not static. And then there you go, public void. This is all the same, totally good. So your I commands, they can have a method that's a void, or you can also pass it a task as well. I put a video up there somewhere, way up there, about MVVM helpers, which also streamlines this process too. Okay, so we have some person here, that's fine. I don't know, let's just run it and see what happens now that we've fixed the build errors at least over here. Now you can do something with this person at least, and that would totally be good to go at this point. But I kind of get what they're doing here, right? They have a person. This, I don't know what this is doing necessarily, but it looks like they're going to call this method, add it to a database, and do something. That's what I'm assuming. Okay, first error here. It says property first name not found. That's actually really interesting because the first name is there. However, the issue that we run into is that while first name is there, there's no getter and setter on that thing. Okay, so if you run this code over here, there's no way for it to get or set it. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to come in and say get set again. So we're going to take this and we're going to go ahead and make it get set over here. So, and this is really important. Just like you had a public getter for your I command, you need a public getter as well, and a public setter for your first name, your last name, and your mail. Okay, so now we should be able to run this because our data binding should validate 100%. Now, if you didn't have in your XAML this data type, you wouldn't get that validation there. So there's ways of doing that data validation there. So now we're compiling, we're good to go. And let's see what our app gives us over here. So here we go. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Perfect. Okay, so we have a first name. I'll say James Montemagno. I'm going to say my email and my password. Now let's also add a breakpoint here and let's just see, did anything actually data bind and did it work? So I'm going to hit add person. Now, if I hover over these, look at this. This is kind of cool. Look, view James was set. Last name, Montemagno, set. Email, my email set. Password, set. So what's important here is by doing the getter and setter, that enables the XAML data binding to not only read, but also to write to those binding fields. That's super duper important. And then we can call whatever we want. This is all going to get passed in. Now, one thing you might do after this is you might do like first name equals string.empty, last name, right, equals string.empty, or mail equals string.empty, and password equals string.empty. You might want to do that, right? So let's run this and see what is happening. So what we're going to do is not only create our new user, but then also we're going to submit them into the field. So I'll say James over here, and then we'll say Montemagno, and then email and password. Now, one thing you might have noticed is that I added a label there, but it's totally not coming up. So something is definitely wrong, but let's check this out as I add a user. So sure enough, I can add a user, I can continue on. Now look that, like, I have cleared those fields, but the UI didn't update. And if I add it again, notice here that all those fields are empty, but the UI is still showing values. So that's super duper bad, right? That is actually happening there, because in this instance, when I make those changes, I am not notifying the user interface that that has changed. We need to notify that, hey, I over here am changing the value, okay? So let's implement that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change these to first name, last name. These all have like, these, validation errors that need to be fixed up. So I'm going to just do kind of my normal casing over here. So, start with a capital letter. And then that's going to trickle down. So we're just going to let this do this here. Perfect. Awesome. So this is looking pretty good so far. Now what we need to do is implement something called INotifyPropertyChanged. Now, I talked to my MVVM helpers that you probably never need to implement this ever in your entire life, but let's just do it for fun. INotifyPropertyChanged. This is a interface that you implement. And when you do so, INotifyPropertyChanged lives over here in the using component model. Oh, look at that. It actually added a D on there for me. Wow. Visual Studio, so smart. So when I do this, I'm going to implement it. It's going to give me an event here. So a public event. And I'm going to create a method for myself that I'm just going to simply say property changed. I'm going to pass it a string over here. And I'll say name. And then all I need to do is say property. I'll say on property changed. There you go. Property changed. I'm going to trigger the event. And what this is going to do is basically pass in the information automatically. So invoke this method. And what happens is when you data bind to Xamarin.Forms or .NET MAUI or any other XAML UI, it's going to register and try to register for a property changed event. So there's a few things I can do. So one, I could create my own little backing field here. So I could do string first name over here. And then I could do this, which is I would drop these down. And then I would do something like return first name. And then here I would do something like first name equals value, and then set a property or on property change. And I'll do name of first name. Cool. The other thing I could do here is I could also change these just manually. Like if I'm not going to change them a lot, I could also do that here. That looks good too. That would also trigger and validate those things there too. But this is important because if I'm data binding first name to other fields, every time I change that element, it's going to change as well. So I need to implement this INotifyPropertyChanged. There's the .NET Community Toolkit that helps out with this, MVVM helpers that helps out with this. Any MVVM framework basically will help it out. Now I've changed those names. So let's go ahead and just fix this up here. And I'll do first name, last name, and then also mail over here, and then password. So we're doing that data binding. Those things all sync up there. And now what we hopefully should get is two things. We should not only be able to enter a first name of James. Notice this. Look at that. You see that? James is my first name. Look at that data binding in action. Whoa, cool. And I'll say Montemagno. I'll say email, and I'll say password. I'm going to hit add person. And just like that, the form is cleared because I've notified the user interface that it's totally good. We totally did this. This is awesome. And it's all good. We have our two-way data binding in place, which is super duper cool. All right. Now, this is fixing the problem. Problem fixed. We've looked to make sure that we have public getters and setters, proper naming conventions, that we've also implemented INotifyPropertyChanged so we can clear out those values, and we're good to go. But there are some other optimizations that we can do on this thing to really make it special. So let's check this out. The first thing that we can do is we could actually bind, instead of to individual properties here, we could just bind to the person. Like there's getters and setters here. What if we did created a person here? And in fact, if you look in their sample code they gave me, they have this people. I don't really know exactly what it is, but we have a people, we have a person. So let's just delete this here. And let's just create a public person. I'm going to call it person. That's what we're going to bind to. I'm going to do a get set. All right. And I'm just going to do a new person on there. That's it. In fact, you don't even need to do a get or a set, because you're never going to set it anywhere else. So we're good. Now what we can do is let's delete all this stuff. Look at this. Gone. And then let's take some of this code and also implement it in the person for INotifyPropertyChanged. INotifyPropertyChanged over here. All right, let's bring that in. Boop. And then let's create another one over here. So I'll do void clear fields. Okay. And what I would probably do here is I would do, first name, last name, email, and empty password. That line completion, so good. Let's make that a public void that I can call. Now, the other thing I probably want to do is I probably want to have backing fields on here. So I'm going to do first name, and we're gonna write that little bit of code here because I think that this is the right thing to do. And here we're just going to do this, and then also call on property change. I'll do name of first name. Again, whole line completion. So good. It is all in there. Let's just make sure that we drop down one more. Perfect. That looks good. I guess we can minimize this too. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do string last name. There we go. We're going to do the same thing here. And this is going to fill it all in. That's super duper good. String email. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do same thing. Return email, fill that in. Notice that we're calling on property changed after we set the value. Same thing here. Let's do a string password. And then down here, we'll do a get of password and set that there. Perfect. It just figured it all out. That's amazing. All right. So that's it. So we have our set properties, our clear fields, all the things that we're going to do, and it's all MVVM-ified up. So now what we can do is instead of, calling these methods, I could do, of course, I don't need the new person. I have a person, right? I don't need to set these fields at all. I could just do this. And then what I could do is simply say add person and then do person dot, clear fields. And then here I would do add to database, right? Boom, whatever you're going to do. Now this cleans up my view model a whole lot. Look at how clean it is. I just have a person here. But what it also means I can do is come in to here and I can just say person dot first name, right? I can index in on those properties. So I can just add those all here, but that command of post people is still inside of my view model, which makes sense. So we're going to change that to email too. There we go. Let's do that. That's it. We've refactored the code here. So now we are actually data binding directly to that person over here. So let's make sure it still works. So James Montemagno, that's I guess my first name, but see how the label updates automatically. And I'll say Montemagno, my email, password here, hit add person, it all clears out. Absolutely delightful, 100%. And there you have it. That is how you can really clean up and solve some common data binding mistakes that I run into myself. It's totally cool. It happens. But hopefully this was helpful. I mean, hopefully this at least helps the person that submitted this on YouTube and on Twitter to me. They're having issues with their source code, and that is definitely one of the reasons why that they're running into this thing here. Now, again, if you have any questions at all, leave them below. Maybe you have other tips and tricks, add them in the comments. I'd super appreciate that. If you like this video at all, give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. If you have some source code you want me to fix up live over here, also send it to me. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. My email is in the About page on the YouTube. And of course, like I said, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button, super appreciate it. But that's going to do it for this video. Thanks to the person that submitted this code. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.